Why do we need black swan events?
Why do we need it? Yeah.
Like from your perspective.
Yeah, like obviously not everyone deserves like a collapse, right? But like, not everyone,
Some people do. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
like yeah, but it's very much needed, I think, because if you think about it, like if you have a thought experiment of this, let's just go with the thought experiment. Just imagine you're in a world. I actually got this from an anime. It's like a sky city they're in, and in that world, right? There's no such thing as sadness. There's no such thing as anger. There's no negativity. There's no wars. Nothing. It's a complete perfect world, and people are just smiling, laughing. But then you look at those people and they look lifeless. And like when you go around that area, it's like so desolated and so like it's almost depressing. Because those people, like although they're like happy and like smiling and everything like that, it's just they look very lifeless without any type of and everything's predicted, right? What's gonna happen. I feel like Black Swan allows for randomness as well, which makes life somewhat interesting, right? Because imagine if just everything was perfect and predicted. It's like playing a game, but you're at 100%. But what makes it more interesting is like the missions. But what makes the missions interesting is that there's a bit of a risk involved in it as well. And there's things that you can't predict that are going to happen, but you manage your way around it and you learn something from it and you grow. I think without Black Swan events, if everything was perfect, everything was predicted, I think we just would become lifeless. But because things aren't predicted, we have randomness, things are uncertain, it makes life more interesting as a result. And I think the biggest thing that we get from it is growth and transformation. If you think about all the times in your life where you had the biggest like growth and exponential growth, majority of it was from like a disastrous event happen and you just picked yourself up and it forced you to change your views. Would you agree with it? Or
I
what do you
do.
think?
I 100% agree. I think the way you put it was absolutely perfect there. Like the way that you explained that, it makes sense. The lifelessness is such a you're sort of your own hero in your own story. And again, like a Black Swan event is it's an unpredictable, an unavoidable event that occurs that's completely out of your control. But how you react to it and what you build from that is what is important. Now, I think a lot of people aren't as privileged to be able to do that at times because people pass away, people lose everything in the process, and that's a horrible circumstance to be in. So I don't think that's not really. We're not really saying, oh yeah, you've lost someone in your life. Now grow up and grow up out of it. It's not that. There are majority of people. Majority of people are impacted to an extent, and that's probably a place where the growth is necessary. But you're right. I think every Black Swan event that I can think of, from World War I to COVID, it's led to something. It's improved something, and it's changed perspectives. It's led to innovation. It's led to revolution. It's led to countries thinking differently, like allies, like globalization. The advancements in technology has been insane since World War II, for example. So there is a coherent need for these events, because you're right. Like if everything was perfect at that point in time, then there's no like what purpose do you have then?
Yeah, there's no reason for like existence in that sense, because if everything was perfect, then what would your ambition and your goal and everything be then? In that case, there's no need for change then. And yeah, and I think like I guess like part of it is also like emotions, right? People think like, oh, we should always be happy, but the way I view emotions is like both happiness and sadness are on the same coin, just on the opposite ends. They're both, without one or the other, you can't have. Like if you don't have sadness, you can't have happiness. They both are interlinked, and they're both necessary to exist to be able to experience one or the other. In some ways, it's like the analogy that I gave was like about like if you have a white flower in a white background, you can't appreciate the beauty of the white flower because you can't see it. But if you put the white flower in a black background, you can appreciate it. You can see its beauty because of the contrast of it. And that's exactly how I see like emotions, that it's just the cycle of life. We need to experience both happiness and sadness to value one another and appreciate its beauty and everything. And just like exactly with black swan events in life, like to be able to appreciate life, you also need to go through the struggle and the difficulty. And when you have the good times, they feel even 10 times better than as if they were just handed to you, you wouldn't appreciate it as well. And I think I'll touch on this a little bit. It's like what Nassim Taleb, I think he touched on, was called prospect theory. And it was just about like how when you get things, when the rate of change, or when you get a huge, let's just say like, let's just put you in an environment of crypto, right? Say you invested like $1,000 and then the next day you got 100 million, like you just randomly the coin went up and you now are at $10 million. Because it happens such a short period of time, you wouldn't even value it. Like you might be like, oh, amazing. And then you probably just end up spending it in another coin and it would just go down, collapse. So, whereas if you built yourself way like slowly to get to like 10 million of dollars, you built the qualities, the traits, you went through the adversity, you understand the struggle, the pain that had to go through to getting to that stage, that you're now in a position to be able to preserve that. Whereas if you just got it handed to you very easily, you wouldn't. You'd most likely lose it all. So I feel like that without the struggle and the pain, you wouldn't be able to build the qualities and the traits and the character to be able to preserve things and be able to value it if it was handed to you. And that's like prospect theory, but I'll go over that like later.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it, because it's like if you've built a business from the ground up, you will know the values, the struggles, the good times, the hard times that you took along that journey to build that successful brand. And so you're not ready to lose it in an instance over something, and you value that a bit, you value it more. And I mean, you see with entrepreneurs, like people that have built the business from ground up in themselves, they really place importance on, this is my branding and this is what I stand for, the values behind this. Whereas, you're right, if you were just hand someone the business, they wouldn't really understand the core values and the fundamentals of it to really understand what that means. Because for something to exist and for you to value, it must have meaning to you as well. Like you can't place value on something that doesn't mean anything to you. Like relationships, for example, with your parents and your friends, they mean something to you at that point in time. That's why you value it. That's why you nurture it. You don't nurture things because you don't care. You nurture because you care. So it's an interesting way to look at it. And it's kind of opened my eyes to that a bit, because yeah, you're right. Like when you don't have to work for it, you don't understand it.
Yeah, completely. And that's why I embrace like slow growth, which is like consistent rather than like rapid growth that happens overnight. Because I sort of come to realize that, rapid growth if rapid growth happens, then rapid loss, you won't really feel anything. You don't understand it. Whereas when you have slow but consistent results that are happening, you build, as I said, you build character, values, and traits, and you just build your identity around it, that you're able to preserve it. So I embrace that a lot more now. Before I was like, I want things to happen quick. But, after going through crypto, I've learned my lesson. No, but it's just, you really change.
And I think you're applying that to the podcast as well now. You know what I mean? I can definitely see that. Like, it's all about what can you do in this point in time, and what's the best thing you can do in this point in time. But also understand that without hoping there's no black swan events that impacts either of us. Do you enjoy it? Do you value it? What does it mean to you? And that's what helps you get up and do it and continue it. I found, and I'm slowly finding that with my health that's the way I'm starting to think of it, is this is value for me, therefore I need to nurture it. It's going back to like that sort of the first principle, like why? But yeah, like, we're so stoked to be almost hitting 100 subs, for example, and along 3 months, 6 months that we've done this since last year November, right?
Well,
8 months.
technically, we started
April,
properly, like
but
April. Yeah,
but we tested the waters and all that stuff. So in November, so it's been a long journey. In 8 months, we've learned so much, and then to think that there could be so much more to learn. There's ways we want to improve it, and that improvement will come over time. But it's the slow growth. You're right. You just value the little things a bit more.
yeah, 100%. But and yeah, like I think just coming back to also like Black Swan events, I think another point as well is like really it forces you to change your beliefs, because there's moments where we're very hardwired and fixed on some beliefs or some things, but only until we really go through like the value of despair phase, we really then be like, okay, I think I have to change my ways and I have to really change my beliefs because I'm getting the consistent results that I don't want. And like you're in the state of the rock bottom. Now it's like I have to do something. Anything that I do will anything that I change in terms of my perspective will result in a much better outcome. Because I guess like what also shows you is just feedback, and it just stress tests your system. Where it's like, was it robust or resilient with what current system that I have, or was it full of vulnerabilities or weaknesses? And I think that's what Black Swan does. It really reveals like the weaknesses and vulnerabilities in your system
And yourself as well. But you're right, yeah. It allows for self-reflection, which is so important. I think when you sort of take a step back and think about what went well, what didn't go well, what could I do better, that's so powerful. Because you tend to then take on those actions. You take that thing a lot more serious for yourself, and you carry that. I think we don't do a lot of self-reflecting. And rightfully so. I think the world is so busy. Like, we've got so many things going on. Do we ever have the chance to sit back and think, okay, what did I do well? What could I have done better? Like that self-reflection. And that happens at Black Swan events because it exposes as you mentioned, the vulnerabilities or the robustness. Like, oh, that went well, that didn't go well. Change it.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good point. And I think like with that, it also leads to as a catalyst for like changing, like, and as we said, like transformation, and I think also like another part of that is like it stimulates innovation. Like it makes you more creative. You have to now think outside the box rather than being very fixed in your usual ways and your conventions.
It's important that evolution, like, we've seen the rise of AI. A lot of these things had a starting point, and then if you even go back beyond that like World War II probably had a starting point beyond that. Like if we looked at civilization, there was a lot of centralized civilizations around kingdoms, emperors. There was no concept of globalization. If we still had the Romans still ruling Europe, for example, or the Egyptian civilization still exists. Yeah, I mean, they were technologically still advanced at that point in time. I mean, some of the Egyptian civilization things, have you seen like how technologically advanced they were? It's insane. Like
How they built a pyramid, yeah, that's
blows my mind. Aliens. No, but yeah, no, it's they're onto something. But had they been given the technology they have now, what could they have done? That could be a very interesting question to ask. Is if the ancient Egyptian civilization had access to the technology that we have now, what would they be able to do?
Yeah, wow.
Scary, right?
Yeah,
When you think about it, like they could, and I mean, where did that technology come from? We don't know that answer fully, right? But yeah, it's the world needs to go through evolution in order for it to survive. And I think that's why you see the rise and collapses of empires and different companies and different, the companies that still exist, for example, let's look at Apple. Number one in evolution in technology, for example, like providing good quality products. Have they slacked off a bit over the last few years? Maybe they have. But, Steve Jobs was a visionary, just improvement, like making it better, Now, was it as a result of Black Swan events? Probably not. But it kind of tells you that in order to survive, you need to change. Like change is very important. And, we need complacency, and complacency is like the biggest enemy of the people. Being complacent and comfortable is just going to, look, being comfortable in life is important, I think, right? Like comfortable in the sense that you're able to do your daily things without having to worry about health impacts, financial impacts.
I would reword it to like stability in some sense.
Yeah, okay. That's a good way to look at it. Thank you. But having stability, you're right, is important. But getting too comfortable with that stability and not forcing yourself to think or prepare for what could happen is complacency, because the reference point in your present is everything is good. The reference point in your future, you don't know. Reference point in your past will tell you that bad things happen. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think like obviously stability is important to preserve, but there's so many things that are out of your control and you can't predict. And if you get too comfortable with just stability, and you don't prepare for when there's moments or phases where there's going to be instability, then that can throw you off guard and completely collapse in that sense. So I guess it's very important to be in the frame of like always like adapting. Essentially.
Adapting
Agile.
and changing. Agile. Agile, the infamous agile. And then ideas and beliefs is a good one as well, because like I said, globalization, I've said this in the past, globalization has allowed for the flow of religion openly. Multiculturalism is a big part of what Australia right now and just the entire world. You don't have centralized races of people central to one country. You have different people in different parts of the region that bring different ideas, different beliefs. Now, those ideas and beliefs contradictory or wrong to what this traditional view could be, yeah, it happens, right? But that's not to say that it hasn't brought the flow of ideas and beliefs. Like Sydney, for example, we've got Strathfield or Burwood, Sydney. Like you've got so many amazing places to eat Asian food. You go to Harris Park, Parramatta, you've got Indian food available. You've got Mediterranean food available in Bankstown and other places. So foods that 100 years ago our grandparents wouldn't have thought of ever trying. Like I don't think my granddad would have ever thought of having sushi. You know what I mean? Or having like a kebab, but that's changed. Now we're seeing that. And globalization has allowed for that, like opening ourselves up to more connecting with different countries. And that wouldn't have happened without a Black Swan event.
Yeah, definitely. Like cultural diversity, especially.
It's so important.
It's very important. And I think also a good thing with that is that it introduces competition, which is like, I'd say in a good way, because
right.
it in a good sense that it introduces competition where now you have to also now you have to be on alert and also like improve your ways as well. Because it forces you to be in a adaptive mindset. Like, how do I improve? How do I also, what ideas can I get to be able to compete with this other person in business or whatever it is? But it puts you it forces you to improve basically and transform. So I think in that regard, and that's sort of good for both, because like that person was also competing, that business. So it's like it's making you both. It's bringing out your potential in a positive light. That's how I see it. So
competition is a great thing if used wisely.
Yeah, healthy competition.
Yeah,
obviously not toxic competition.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, I think those were very good points with why we need Black Swan events, or why we have to go through Black Swan events.
Yeah.
Why it's just inevitable. And yeah,
I
you
agree.
can get out of it.
And think the idea here you've got is like stimulating innovation, like the technological advancements, we've spoken about it so much, but there was one during World War II that was identified. Essentially, it was there was a woman by the name of Heidi Lamar and George Antheil. It was a discovery of frequency hopping spread spectrum, which laid the foundation for the creation of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Oh, wow. So George Antheil, this was during World War II, 1941. It had to do with the Allied torpedoes. And so they were trying to figure out how do they intercept the radios, something along those lines. And then it was about, they figured out, you can change radio frequencies, which, at that time, this was patented by the US government, and a patent was applied, and it was this top secret. It's a top secret mission, not a mission per se, but experiment. And although the technology wasn't used during World War II, it laid the foundation for creating Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Interesting read. I didn't know about this, this morning, but I'll elaborate a bit more when we talk about it. But at a high level, that's what it is. But, things like that. And then you talk about Alan Turing as well.
And that guy saved 14 million lives.
Yeah.
Stopped the war by 2 years. And at the same time, created books and things that basically popularized computer science. And led to, I guess, programming and AI. But not many people even know about it, which is actually crazy. Considering this guy actually stopped World War II by 2 years and saved more than 40 million people. These are the silent heroes. Even Leonardo da Vinci and these people, he basically led to the innovation of aviation to what we know to this day, with his sketches and everything, design.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Didn't know that.
He sketched out helicopter designs and plays
helicopter. So he designed. Oh wow. I mean, it makes sense. It's Italian as well, right? At that time, yeah.
Yeah.
Things in the Assassin's Creed game.
That's what
But you're right. There's so many people that have just had significant impacts. I think, and it was these Black Swan events that forced them to really dig in and
get birth to these people in a way. Great people came out of the difficult times. If you look in even religion, all those key figures that are mentioned, they came during a time of apocalyptic events, destruction, chaos, and they came and gave complete different ideas, different beliefs, different values, different innovations, and they just led to the flourish of that kingdom until obviously it collapsed again. Another person came in. It allows to bring out one's potential and bring people closer to the truth, but also gives the ability to bring out the greatness of people.
Yes, 100%. The success metrics there is so underrated, in the sense that the success isn't just built around what they achieved in that point in time. It's what their achievement led to over the next 100 years is more significant. And it goes back to that second and third order consequence. First order consequence, everyone's yeah, great, did this. But what that leads to over time is just insane. I think Rogan, for example, for his podcasting, off topic, but he started podcasting, and at that time, you wouldn't have thought podcasting would be a big thing, but still stuck to it, persistent, did it because he enjoys it, he's good at it, and it's opened the gate for the flow of ideas between different people being able to sit down and have a conversation like this and spread the flow of information. It's so important, because you can't have a valid you can't have a valid conversation in 5-10 minutes, which was traditionally the view. A journalist, you wouldn't have, or people would write a book, but people don't read books as much as they should. I'm one of those people. But it's a new idea, podcasting now. People like to listen, and that's where the flow of ideas happen. And I think he single-handedly, and I don't care if it's controversial if I say, he single-handedly opened the gate to so many, to the flow of information. Social media aside, a big figure that allowed for a different type of conversations to be had and learn from people. Whether it's you disagree with that person or you agree with that person. How many times have we had a chat and you and I have had a different perspective on something? It's important, because it forces me to think and think, okay, what are you thinking? And why do you think that way? It forces you to ask me that same question. Why do you think that way? And then when you apply two different perspectives, you get a different and third perspective that is so powerful, because now you think, oh, I didn't think of it that way. But now when I'm faced with that, I can probably think of it that way a bit more. You know? It's just consequences like that that's happened. Now, has it led to misinformation? Yeah, of course, to a certain extent. But the idea, the fundamentals of allowing great people to have great conversations, flowing great ideas, leading to great outcomes, is such a good thing to see.
Yeah, completely agreed. I think that's a very good way of seeing, like, that's a very good perspective in podcasting and how information is delegated in this day and age.
Yeah. I mean, people get things wrong as well. You know, like it's an inevitable thing that happens. You will get things wrong, and it happens. But do you take accountability for what you get wrong? You should. I mean, I might have said things that I might be wrong about.
Yeah, I would definitely agree as well.
Challenge me on it, and that's fine. I'm happy to be challenged, because that's where you grow. That's where you learn, is when you're challenged, not when you think you're on top of everything and you know everything.
Pretty sure, like, Socrates even said the wisest person is one who doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
Who admits that they don't know anything.
Yeah. It's such an underrated thing to just say, I don't know, but let me find the answer. Or, you know, let me think about that a bit more. It's such a powerful thing people don't really think of. And again, there's a lot of factors that impact that. I'm no expert.
Yeah, that would be definitely, I think, a good conversation for sometime we can look into. Yeah.
I think we'll wrap up here. Think this kind of ends the Black Swan theory series. Yeah. Had a lot of chat about black swans. I've been dreaming about black swans. But no, I think it's been good. Like, I've learned what a black swan event is, and never thought of that. I actually had someone in a meeting use that word, black swan event. You know, it's different conversation, but I was like, oh, I know what that is. It's like, yes. But no, and we've shared really examples of, you know, what are some collapses that have happened and what can happen in the future, how to prepare for it, and why it's needed. So I think those are some of the fundamentals that we've touched on that are so important to understand this topic in such a extensive way.
Yeah, I think we've touched on it really well, and yeah, thanks to Nassim Taleb, who basically, you know, created the book and popularized the concept of Black Swan and explained it really well. And
let's hope we can get him on someday.
Yeah, honestly, that'd be amazing. Love to talk with that guy.
Good conversation.
Good conversations, good ideas, good thoughts.
Anyways, well, thanks for Shiv, and thanks everyone for listening. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please follow us on the socials you may be following us on, or follow us on the streaming services.
Yeah. Thanks, Shiv. Thanks.